Hey guys, it's me, Pivot's Queen, and we are back with another chart breakdown. Okay, we're going to take a look at EURUSD and we're also going to break down NAS 100. Um, so I already did the top-down analysis, so we're just going to overview it. First, I do want to start with what we were looking for last week and how things ended up playing out. Take a look at what ended up playing out last week, and then we'll get into what ended up happening this week. Oh, and then for news, there's not too much news this week, but you can check your news on a economic calendar. I like my FX book economic calendar to check news, and I'll try to leave the link to that below in the description. But it wasn't too many big news events, so I just not mentioning it. Last week. We did notice that price had broken out of this channel to the downside, but we wanted the break of this low to kind of confirm if price was going to actually start continuing to the downside. And price got to this low, but it actually respected this area. So because we didn't get a break of that low, no one should have really been looking for sells because that was our trigger or our confirmation. And I ended up getting into buys. I don't know why I don't have them on my chart, but I did clean this chart off. Um, so the first buy entry I had, um, I got in basically just simply a trend line break and break of structure. So I had a minor trend line break. And then this was the last high on the M15. Once that was broken, I actually hesitated on this one. Once it broke it in that wick down, I was like, I don't know if it's retesting or maybe we're changing trends. I was a little unsure. Um, but when I saw price really respecting this level, that's what I actually ended up getting in for my buy. So I got in here, I put my stop loss a little bit below the last low. I gave it some extra room. And then I just targeted really just this next zone. I didn't want to take it too far. And so that was my target. That ended up playing out. And then I got another buy entry. Um, once price broke this zone, was that what we were waiting on? I think we were waiting on actually this trend line break here. But once price broke this zone, and I also had another minor trend line, so just so you guys can see, I used these two connecting highs to draw a trend line. And once price kind of broke and retested that trend line, broke above this area, I got another buy. It was a little later, so kind of after that candle close. Um, Stop loss below the last low would have technically been down here. But that was too big. 35 pips is really not too big of a stop loss for me personally. But it was too big for the risk to reward that I was going for. So I did use a tighter stop. I kind of just did a little bit below this 1 hour zone that price was above. Because my thought process was like, okay, price should at least respect the zone if it's going to move to the upside. So I got in there. I did take partials at this level that's here. So that was about 20 pips, but my overall target was the next zone. And I'm gonna turn these off for a second because I just want to focus on the zones. My overall target was the next zone. I did move stop loss to break even, so I'm actually still in this trade, and I might get taken out at break even or I might hit TP. But that was last week, and so hopefully you guys were able to catch some pips on that. I know technically we were waiting for the break of this like higher uptrend line, so you might not have taken anything last week if you're waiting on the breakouts in particular. Um, but I always say follow market structure, and that'll help you find entries during the week. For the 4 hour, we did break out of this 4 hour channel to the upside, and so we could be changing trends. I did also notate the highs and then lows of the 4 hour. So this was the last 4 hour high, and this was the last 4 hour low that's down here. And so I'm actually interested to see if price is going to reach this 4 hour high for one, because it does look like we're heading that direction. And then I'm very interested to see how price is going to react once we get there. I want to know if price is going to come to this level, respect it, and start moving down, or if we'll see price kind of move above that area, maybe move up a little higher, right? But it can kind of move up as far as it wants to, but if it doesn't break that daily high, then we'll probably still be in that selling market structure for the daily time frame. So I do want you to keep that in mind. But as far as the 1 hour goes, we are uptrending. We are near the bottom of this 1 hour channel. And it looks like price has respected it. So we're gonna see if we're gonna continue trading within this 1 hour channel. We did break above previous highs here. Price has broken above that. So far we are creating higher highs and higher lows. So we are in buying market structure. So what does that mean for this week? This week, as long as we continue with the buying market structure, then we're going to keep looking for buying opportunities. Right now, when just say hop into a buy, you want to wait till you get a pullback of some sort, or maybe like a break and retest. So let me highlight that for you guys. This was a previous high area right here. So we want to see if price maybe come back, retest this level and keep moving to the upside. So maybe see something like this. Overall, I am targeting this 4 hour zone for sure. So I do think price will reach there, but I'm interested to see what price does once it gets there. So if we do get like a little pullback, I would say you could target that area. If we don't get a pullback, I would wait for breaks, for the break of this 4 hour zone that's here because it's a really strong zone. If we get a break and retest of that level, we still have another stopping point at this 4 hour high. So we still want to make sure we target there. But if we do break above this level, above that 4 hour previous high, then we'll be targeting to the next zone. So pretty similar to what we were looking for last week, but a little bit more confirmation because we do have at least that 1 hour in an M30 buying market structure going on. So that's for the buy scenario. Now, if the buying market structure is broken, we see a break of lows, we see lower highs and lower lows starting to form, then we're going to switch and we're going to start looking for sells. Now, why I think we could still see the sell happen is because there is 4 hour divergence that is forming. It started forming here and it's actually still forming. So just because we see divergence, it doesn't mean that we're gonna automatically sell, but it does let us know that there is a slowing in momentum. So in this case, it's a slowing of the buying momentum, but the divergence is not done yet. So we have to wait for the divergence to finish to like act on it. So we're still gonna follow the market structure. And I'm going to wait for the break of the low that we were waiting on last week for confirmation to sell for this week. So I'm not going to change my placement. This is still like the last really strong low that sticks out. So I'm going to wait for the break of that low before I start to look for sales. And I know that's a lot of pips in between. Um, but I want to be sure. If you have questions, please leave it down in the comments below so I can make sure I'm explaining this clearly to you guys. But that's my analysis for Euro USD. So now let's take a look at NAS 100. And for NAS, I really didn't trade very much last week. Um, when we talked about our markup from last week, I'm gonna just move this to the side so we could see. I was waiting for the break of this low before I entered for sells or the break of this high before I entered for buys. And you can see all week it kind of just played around in here. So I really wait on the breaks of the highs and the lows just to be sure. So we did get a break of that high happen here. So I did take a little buy. Towards the end of the week, it happened like Thursday, and I did actually went ahead and close at this level here just because it was end of the week and I didn't want to have to hold anything over the weekend. But that was my target. So that played out really well. But now we're kind of getting into dangerous territory with Nas because we are approaching that all-time high territory. So this red box is all-time high. And again, I can't recommend that you trade above this level because I can't tell you where the target I trade really based off of like my zones, and zones you need past history or old data to reference like where to take profit or where you're targeting. Um, so that's the only thing with this all-time high. So for this week, again, the top-down analysis really has not changed too much for those higher time frames. But for this lower time frame for this week, I would say for buys, I would just go ahead and wait for the break of this zone or a break above the last high, right? And then we're targeting that all-time high zone. But then after that, I can't really tell you where to target, right? But if it does break this zone, I feel like you can buy up to that level. So I'm just going to copy and paste this because that's what we would be looking for. Now for the sells, waiting on the break of a previous low, not really using that low because again, it's like too close to market close, market open, and I want to be sure. So I'm gonna wait for the break of this low that's here. And I had listed this at 29,695. So in this area, if we get a break and retest of that low, then I think we can see sales down, but we're still going to make sure we are respecting those previous lows. So I did list out in this text box here where the targets would be, but essentially I just used the previous lows, the same low that we already had highlighted, and I also used this low here as a target as well. Uh, So targeting the previous lows, not holding on to the sell per se, because still on the higher time frame, we are in really strong buying market structure. But I think if we get a break and retest, I'm gonna move to the higher time frame. If we get a break and retest of this low, I do think we could at least catch a couple sells, either down to this low, down this to this low, or just to the next zone. Then I really want to see what price does from there in that area. But I'm just gonna set my alerts. I'll set my alert at this high. I'll set my alert at this low. It's actually already set. You can see that alarm here. And I'm just gonna wait for the breakout and then react accordingly. So, hopefully all of that made sense. Again, if you have questions, please leave it down in the comments below. I appreciate you guys for sticking in the video or sticking in, yeah, watching the video this long. I hope everyone has a fantastic trading week, and I will see you next week.